Hello, everyone. Today we have a very special guest in our show. He's Tim Freke. He lives in Glastonbury in the United Kingdom, and he is a pioneering philosopher whose best-selling books and talks and life-changing events have touched the hearts and minds of millions of people around the world. He is one of the 100 most spiritually influential living people on the 2020 Watkins magazine list. And I've been able to read some books and also see some talks and everything. And it's just amazing. Oh, his charisma and the way he loves and how he transmits all this love for the subjects he embraces. So we are very happy to have him here today. It is close to 8. No, it is close to 8 a.m. where I am. It is close to 2 p.m. where he is. And so I'm just very glad and happy that you've accepted this interview, Tim. And starting to welcome you to this talk, I want to ask you, what were those live events that changed something in your life to maybe direct you to where you are right now?
So those really seminal moments when things shift.
Yeah.
Well, there's been a lot of them. That's part of being old. You just think, oh, there's been quite a few now. But the earliest one started when I was a boy, about 12 years old, and I found life profoundly mysterious, and it felt like all the grown-ups were were asleep in some way, and that they didn't seem to notice what I could notice, which was that the whole existence felt like one big question, and that it felt to me, if there's such a big question, there must be such a big answer to what is this, and who am I, and what should I do with it, and all of the and then one day, just sitting on a hill not far from where I live now, actually, looking at the little town. It wasn't this town, but it was a nearby one. Something happened for the first time, and I would now, at the time I had no idea what it was. I'd now call it being deep awake. So just that, the thing that captures it the most for me is this. It's like I'm this, and then suddenly I'm seeing in a whole new way. And probably, my point of reference for that, I'd grown up, I'd been to church, and all the rest of it was, oh, this is God. And the experience was one of extraordinary love, like the whole universe just pulsating with love, and I felt one with that. And that made a gigantic impression on me. It didn't last. I don't know how long it lasted, to be honest with you, Gloria. It just came and it went. But it was long enough that it really made a big impression. And because of my nature, I wrote about it. So I still have some record of it. And then I've spent the next nearly 50 years trying to explore that experience. And then in the latest phase of my life, and two things really, exploring it, coming to understand what it is, what it says about the nature of reality, and how to share it with other people, because it feels such an important thing to share.
And what have you found so far about it?
Well, I think the first thing which is really important to me is that experience of being deep awake, of waking up, is natural. I feel very blessed because I didn't have it in a church. I didn't have it in a mosque, or I wasn't meditating. I wasn't reading somebody's book, or I was just on a hill as a kid. So there's always been this sense for me that this is something human. And what I found later, when I came to study and then write a lot of books on all of the spiritual traditions of the world, was that I started looking and thinking, they're all very different, but at their mystical heart, it seems to be individuals like me who've had a similar human experience and then interpret it through the eyes of their own culture. So like all of us, you can only think with the ideas that you've been given by your culture or you've come across. So if you're in a culture which has a particular idea, like when it happened to me the first time, I'd come up through the Church of England. That was my major reference point. So my point was, this is God. If I'd been in India, I might have been, this is Buddha nature. But what I could do later as I learned all these different languages is starting going, there is a commonality here. A bit like if you travel the world, what people think of as food is very, very different depending on the different cultures, but everyone has food. And it's feel a bit like that. Like these are primal human experiences which people have been exploring for a very long time. So the first thing for me was to see their commonality and to really understand what often gets called a perennial philosophy, something which is always there. And then having written books on all of these different spiritual traditions, as I probably up 15 years ago now, I started to enter a new phase of my journey, which then became, so each of these individuals who jumps out for me, whether it's Bodhidharma with Zen or Rumi with the Sufi tradition or the Balazdes with the Gnostics, whoever it is, what they've done, which has interested me, is they've taken what they've been given and recreated it for their own time. So it began to dawn on me that really, if I really wanted to get this, then I needed to do that. I needed to go, how do we need to recreate spirituality? How do we need to take the perennial truths and recast them in a new way, which is not just appropriate for our time, so we can experience it, but also in tune with the knowledge we now have, which our ancestors didn't have. So this last period has been around, okay, we need a new form of spirituality now. What's it going to look like?
Well, this is amazing. Now, what comes to mind when you share your experience, which is amazing, these kinds of experiences don't happen to the majority. I mean, there are a few people that are blessed to have experiences like this since they were little, so they can, move forward in life with a focus. But these kinds of experiences don't happen to the vast majority. And so would you consider, or what do you think makes the difference in who gets this experience? Is this a karma dharma thing?
Yeah.
Or how do you think about that?
Well, the honest truth is I don't know. I do know that for me, it had always, something had always been there. There was an kind of crazy youthful confidence that I would find the answers I was looking for. And although I'm still looking and it's still moving, it has happened. And I also found that it's a shared thing, so that right from as a kind of teenager, I found that if I put my attention here, if I opened myself up to this experience, it would happen. I couldn't control it. It's more familiar now, so it's more accessible now, but then it would just suddenly happen and it would be a big event. But often it would happen also to whoever I was with, and we go into it together. And that was always interesting. It was something. So what I've done since then, when I run these events called Deep Awakenings all around the world, wherever I'm invited, is to get people together and get them to connect in that way and see if we can bring it about together. And it's pretty damn successful. So that it now feels like, look, this experience, which is marked out by, I would say, communion or oneness, deep feeling of connection, and this what I call big love, compassion, this all embracing, which is really how the connection feels. It's not very far away, and if you can create the right environment and you enter into it, especially with others, over a weekend, you can enter into that experience. And when you do, you can't miss it. I mean, it's like, I remember a gentleman always jumps out at me saying at one of these retreats, going, Tim, but if I have this experience, well, I know I've had the experience. And my feeling was, you won't miss it. You won't possibly miss it, because the love is so visceral, you can feel it in every cell in your body. And that's what I'm looking to, on the experiential side of what I do, That's what I'm looking for people to have that experience and to have that gnosis, that knowledge, that knowing.
Now, this is amazing that you can create this as an experiential situation for people. And, you know, the oneness that you mentioned, the experience of oneness, do you think it has like different layers or different levels? Those who have reached to the experience like you have of deep awakening and oneness, and then those who have not had this awakening, but when they experience this love, they start sort of manifesting a level of understanding of oneness, but not quite get the whole thing. Do you think it comes in like in layers, or is just one experience?
I think it's a whole collection of experiences. In fact, I'd go so far to say is that everything in life, including awakening, is individual. And everyone is slightly different. It's like, you know, even if you were sitting next door to me here, you would see the world in a slightly different way to me. Literally, you're on the other side of the world, seeing it from a different perspective. That's what we're like. So there's a lovely line by Theodotus, who was an early Gnostic, who just went, everyone experiences the gnosis in a way unique to themselves. And I think that's right. So there's commonalities. And you can recognize, oh, it's a bit like, you know, did you see that film? And you can work out, yeah, we both saw the film. But there's still the individual differences. And there's still how you interpret it. Because the experience itself is just given. It's like there's the oneness, there's the love, but then what it means, how you got there. So there's a lot of people will interpret it in a certain way, and that takes them down a certain road. Quite often, I think, takes them down a road that personally I don't know that's a good road to go down. So it's not as straightforward. So, and also, I'm not sure for myself, Gloria, I'm still I feel like a beginner. I mean, it's new all the time. And I'm constantly having, you know,
Awakening.
Last year was one of the biggest experiences I've ever had, you know, this whole new thing. And I'm still mulling that and wondering what that was and how to get back to that or to get familiar with it. So there's levels within levels within levels. I'm a little bit nervous of it being like a ladder because because we're so different. It feels like each one of us has our own unique ladder, as it were, to go up. And you can't really compare people's ladders, if that makes sense. So each one of us can go deeper and deeper and deeper, and we see it in different ways. But there's not much to be gained by looking at people and going, "Oh, you're still there, are you? Well, I've reached here." You know, 'cause it's not quite like that. It's richer than that, more complex than that.
Now, do you think that maybe the deeper we go in ourselves and we open up spiritually, the less differences there are in the experiences that we have? Like, for instance, I don't know. For instance, let me just something that comes to mind. The experience of unconditional love. Like, we've been conditioned to believe that unconditional love is what we feel for our kids. That's unconditional, and sort of like something like that. Yet, like the kind of experience or the kind of love that the awakened ones have experienced is not about, you know, I love my kids and then I punish them, or this is unconditional, or whatever, how we've been taught about it, and how, you know, we've inherited. That's how it is. We inherit these thoughts and ideas, and we'll get into like the religious beliefs that have shaped Christianity, and how wrong they have been. And so we have inherited all these ideas that are a little more ego-based, but they could have good intentions, but not exactly take us to the truth of unconditional love. And so unconditional love is more like a state of mind, a state of awareness. You awaken to a state of transcendence, right? And when you arrive to that state of transcendence, like the enlightened have, though they have been from different traditions or whatever, I'm sure they share a deeper commonality of understanding that goes beyond our duality. So do you believe like that the deeper you go into your spirituality or your inner self connected to the oneness, the less differences there are in terms of of the individual experiences?
That's such a great question. Um, I have completely relinquished in my old age the idea of enlightenment and the idea that anyone's arrived anywhere. And what I see is that certainly for me now, if someone comes to town and they're enlightened, I'm not interested. I'm much more interested in talking to you or, my mum when she was alive, or because I think what's happened is that with the breakdown of Western religion, certainly in my milieu, we just brought in a lot of Indian religion instead. And what needs to happen with that is the same as we did with Western religion, which is we need to sift it through and go, look, we don't need all of that. This is really good. And the same now has happened for me over the last 20 years with Indian religion. And enlightenment is one of those ideas. It's very much an Indian idea. It's the idea that someone's arrived somewhere. And it often comes from this view of spirituality, which is very common, which arose around 500 BC, probably the Axle Age as it's known, and has therefore shaped a lot of traditions. And it's quite negative. And the basic idea, and I've gone into it and written about it a lot, although I don't agree with it anymore. The basic idea is to reach the oneness, you need to get rid of the separateness. So you've got a separateness, you call it your ego or something, and it's in the way. And if you get rid of that, you become enlightened, and then you're one with everything, and it's all love. I think that what disturbs me about that now is the way that it casts our humanity. I feel really sympathetic to our human journey, and I don't feel that our individual self is in the way. I think it's the foundation from which we wake up to something bigger. So I now have an evolutionary picture rather than an idea that we've fallen into illusion and we need to get out, and we've just been all conditioned into illusion and need to get out. It feels to me like actually what's happened is that over a huge length of time, this evolutionary process has gone on. We're in it. So the most natural place for that to start, for love to arise, that there was no love, and then love has arisen in the evolutionary process. And in human beings, the most natural place is that you have that with family and your tribe and your friends, and that's a certain level of it. And there is a conditionality which can come with that, whereby if someone breaks the bonds, then that breaks the love and blah, blah, blah. But from that has arisen this new thing, not instead of that, but it's something bigger than that. So that what happens, I think, with this, what I call the deep awake, is that sense of connection I feel with my kids and my wife and my friends. There's a transpersonal connection. It's not the same. It's like I don't love everyone personally. I don't know who they are, and I certainly don't like everyone. But I don't approve of everyone. Let me say it that way. But there's a deeper connection, and that's by its very nature is unconditional, because there's no condition on it. My love for my wife is conditional on the fact that she's my wife. If she turns around and leaves me, that might be different. But my love for her from this place is unconditional because it's simply because she is. And it's equally true of someone who might be really terrible to me. It's just because it is. So I see this evolutionary current which has woken us up. Now, I think anyone who experiences that, there will be a commonality. And that was your question. So if, as people grow towards that, I think they recognize it. And there's a kind of a maturing which takes place.
Yeah, exactly.
But when we link it to people who around this word enlightenment, I always get the feeling that if you got together all of the people that claim they're enlightened on the planet and put them in a room together, it would be chaos. I think because, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that they are. I don't know. I think something else is going on with a lot of those people now, to be honest.
Well, one of the things about enlightenment that makes at least I have understood of how it is conveyed is that if we reach enlightenment, we don't have to come back to this dual reality in the universe, that we probably go somewhere else. And my feeling, and that's just a feeling, is that this is like a fractal life, a fractal existence, in a sense that, okay, possibly they don't have to come here, but I'm sure there are other places where they can continue evolving into different possibilities of existence that we are not even aware of, because there's more to life than what meets the eye, definitely.
That is definitely right. So there, I mean, the whole idea of escaping the wheel. So
Samsara, you mean?
which is the wheel of karma, or in the Western tradition, it was the wheel of grief. It's the in the
Samsara.
West, the sorry,
Samsara.
samsara yeah, or for the Western tradition, it's the horoscope. That's the wheel. You're caught on the wheel and you go around. But my feeling is, again, this is all part of, everything's evolving, everything. And one of the things about studying the spiritual traditions of the world is you can see them evolving. And this is an idea which comes in at a certain point, and it's part of that idea that the body's a bad thing, you're trapped, you've fallen into separateness, this is a dream and an illusion. And part of what I want to do with a new spirituality for the 21st century is go, no, I don't think we need that anymore. I think what's happening here is great. It's mixed, and we are mixed, but through it, something is growing. And so this idea of if you withdraw enough, if you get rid of if you stop your emotions, if you stop your attachments, if you stop thinking, if you stop everything that makes you human, you can escape the human experience. And my feeling now, although I was very attracted to that in my 20s, is no, that doesn't feel right to me. I mean, the big transition for me, Gloria, was having kids. Because when I had my daughter, it was like no one was going to tell me not to be attached. I was attached. That was it. I'm attached. And it didn't feel like a bad thing. And I didn't want, as she was growing up, I didn't want to be telling her, well, don't develop a separate self now. I wanted her to become a separate, strong woman. And she is now. She's 20 and she's a separate, strong woman. I didn't want her to become egotistical and think it was all about her. Mm-hmm. But I did want her to know it was also about her, and that she could have her life. And so these were things which I'd come across in spirituality a lot. And I began thinking, or when she went to school, I mean, how many times did I hear over the years people telling me that thinking was a bad thing? You could just quiet the mind, everything would be great. Just be here now and don't think. Be here now. That's another one. It's like, did I want to say to a little girl as she's going to school, now I'm worried about this. They're going to make you think, and that's going to stop you being enlightened. It's like, no. Or be here now. It's like, I'm there with my kids going, stop being here now all the time. Remember tomorrow, go and do your homework. You need to be in bed now, do your teeth, all the things that an adult has to do. And so my feeling with all of that was there's something wrong with this spirituality, because if I'm not saying it to my kids, why am I saying it to myself? And where it led me to was this kind of both and approach to spirituality, which went, thinking's great, but don't miss the silence. Or thinking about tomorrow is a really mature thing to do, but don't miss out on now. You can have both of these. And with the separate self, the same. Separate selves, individuals, isn't it great? I love the fact, look, you're so different to me. Wonderful. And don't miss out on the fact that there's one of us as well, but not instead. And that's the big shift, as well and not instead.
Yes. What's let me I'm cold. Cold here.
It's early in the morning.
Yeah. Well, one thing that is coming to mind while you are mentioning all this, and since the early time we started, is Taoism, and like the Wu Chi, and how the Wu Chi is the Tao in silence, and the Tai Chi is the Tao in movement, and they are one, and they are in silence, and the one part is in silence, the other one is in movement, and you just described it. You can be both. You can be the one, don't miss the silent part, and don't miss the one in movement. So it's like you're an ego based on your personality, and you are a spirit based on your silence, your divinity, and we are both.
Yes.
And,
beautiful.
I think that this is a very interesting subject to tap into, because spirituality, as everything, has been manipulated in many ways, and I think that the path to your own discovery, it's you have to do it and find out in many ways. And blessed for those who have had the experiences that take you beyond religion to find that spirituality is innate in our nature.
Yes.
And for those who probably didn't have the experiences, they depend on some sort of religious guidance. But what comes to mind when you were talking about this also is in Buddhism, like they are very focused in working on the mind. Everything is about the mind, and there is no sense of their idea of reincarnation is totally different from the idea that they have in Hinduism. And so, I've been thinking about how religions nowadays, now that we're tapping into the religious aspect, are undergoing a transformation, not because of them, but because of the way people are looking into religions. Do you believe that that all the movement that is happening nowadays on people's little awakenings, in this transition of age, we are probably in this going to the Aquarian age, or whatever different traditions call it, but we cannot deny that we are in a transition of age. Do you think these awakenings that people are undergoing are going to have a deep impact on monotheistic religions, or in general in religions, and that people are definitely going to be empowered into their own spirituality, and religions little by little are going to fall apart?
God, that's such an interesting question. Again, that's a really interesting question. And I'm not absolutely sure what I think, because they've definitely had a big impact, as you were saying, haven't they? I mean, the mere fact that, I don't know, think of someone like Pierre de Chardin, the great Catholic evolutionary thinker, who I think is a real precursor of the future of evolutionary spirituality, and that I'm exploring. In his own lifetime, he wasn't published. It wasn't very long ago, and now the Pope will quote him, and that's a huge jump. So I think they're all being impacted. The Dalai Lama has wrestled with trying to integrate science and Buddhism, and so on and so on. So, but in the long term, it's going to be interesting. I mean, my hope is that a bit like human cultures generally, I love the fact that I go to different countries and they're not the same. So I love all of that, and I think that difference is the color that makes us interesting. So I'd like to keep the color and the insight and the traditions that we've developed in the past, but with an understanding of our commonality, which transcends it, so that we have the best of both worlds. That's what I'm hoping is going to happen. Mm-hmm. And the key with it, to me, is one of the two things. One is that what you're pointing to is the way that it's become about the individual. So for me, the cutting edge of the whole evolutionary process has been the fact that we've individuated. And what gets me from my study of history is just how significant that's been, and how recent, really, that has been. And then from that, I hope that we're going to move from being individuals to what I call unividuals, which is the idea of an individual who's conscious of unity. So we were unconsciously in the herd, by and large. We're now becoming conscious of ourselves as individuals, and that's true socially, but it's also true in spirituality. Oh, I'm a this. I grew up a Muslim, I'm a Muslim. I grew up a Catholic, I'm a Catholic, all of that. Now, significant numbers of people are going, well, it doesn't matter how you grew up. What matters is, what do you think as you? And then people become individuals. Then from that, if that leads to the sense of unity, and if what I'm saying is right, the individual isn't the problem, it's actually the thing that allows it to happen, then we become individuals who have a sense of unity, unividuals. And then it's like, oh, okay, I'm a unividual who comes through Catholicism. Well, maybe I will continue with that, maybe I won't, but it will transform it. And that's my hope, that we become that we move from an individualism to unividualism, and that will impact everything.
Uh-huh. Well, one thing that I think is going to impact, or it's impacting already, but it will be deeper impact as time goes by, is the fact that as individuals related to religions, whether we are very attached to them or not, the stories that we've been told, especially like Mary Magdalene, even though she was asked for forgiveness from the church in, I think, 1969. If you talk to the common of people and you ask them about Mary Magdalene, they still think that she's a prostitute. I mean, it has so been ingrained in people's mentalities for thousands of years that this story was manipulated and wrongly passed on. And so change in people's mentality, it's going to take a while, because most of them are not accepting the new stories that come from the the Gospels, Apocryphals, how do you say it in English?
Apocryphal Gospels.
Exactly.
Apocryphal.
Yeah, exactly. So these Gospels, they are not accepted as originals or are part of the true story that was lived. And so I would like to ask you about, how much we can trust the story that we were told, and how much we can be open, because I think who, maybe J.J. Benitez, that went back in like time travel or whatever, but who of us can say that we can remember exactly what happened those days and know closely the story of Mary Magdalene and Jesus? And so how can we open up to change our mentality and accept these new stories? And how can we trust, if one was wrong and new have come, how can we know they were real and they were for real?
These are fantastic questions. They're really, really deep questions. So the first thing is, it relates back to what we were saying previously, which is, I have personal friends, people who are involved with my work, who have really left religion behind, especially Christianity. And I've done a lot of work with Christianity. And so a lot of people look to me for that and have come because I offer a different vision of what Christianity was actually about. But I also went to Ireland recently and led a retreat for all Catholics, run by a Catholic priest who come to my events. And they were so awake, it was wonderful. And they had made the choice not to leave it behind, but to change it from within. So I think there will be both those things will go on. Some people like me will go, I'm not interested in staying in that. I want to create something new. Other people will be like, no, I want to create something new out of the old. And there's room for both of those. And then with your thing with the story, well, I don't know if you know probably from what you said, sounds like you probably don't know my book, The Jesus Mysteries. Okay, so of all my books, the one that caused the biggest fuss and which was a bona fide international bestseller and got banned in Korea and all sorts, was a book on the origins of Christianity. So I have a very particular insight around that to do with my study of history. And I'm very happy to explore that with you, but it's quite a radical thesis about what Christianity was about. And but we can, and I'm certainly happy to do that. But the underlying question that you were asking was, how do we let go of the new stories and old stories and let in the new ones? And my feeling is the key thing we need to develop is compassionate, critical thinking, so that we're developing the openness of connection, what people call the heart, that connective thing which transcends thought, actually, which is anyone can do it right now. And then also we develop the ability to question ourselves and question others in a constructive but deep way, to open things to doubt. And then we look for what is the most reasonable. What is the, if you've got different ideas, then that one makes more sense right now. Is it the truth? Probably not, but it's the best we've got right now. And then next someone will come up with something better. Then you go, oh, that's better. And I've lived my whole life like that, which is why, I just made a video. I hadn't done this before. I literally just made a video saying, oh, I've written 35 books and this is why they were wrong, and drew on one key idea, which I think is wrong. And I wish more people would do that. Just go, look, we're evolving. Part of evolving is constantly recognizing how wrong you've been. It's like, because then you get something new. So that's what I think needs to happen. That's what I try and do individually, and what I think we need to do collectively. So we never arrive and it's like, well, there we are, but it's the best we've got so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I ask you this because it's amazing how the power of religion, not only the monotheistic religions, but Buddhism and Hinduism and paganism, the power they have to shape people's view of life or people's mentality, and also the way, like, why cannot we have not been taught in our lifetimes the way in Western world, at least, and I believe also this is a worldly thing from that time in life, the time in cosmic history that we are living. We were completely disconnected from our inner selves, and probably our journey in this era has been to reconnect and to start accessing in a more truer base the intuition, our part of our subtle self. Like, for instance, and you were mentioning something about movies, and why Star Wars and why Lord of the Rings impact so many people, and beyond the storyline of war or that is behind them, there is so much spirituality in it. Like, for me, Yoda was my first visual teacher when I was a teenager. Though I've been reading Krishnamurti, and I was reading Carlos Castaneda, and I was reading Ling Yutan and all these philosophers, my first visual teacher, coming from where I come from, was Master Yoda. And for me, the teachings of Yoda, this is when I want to appeal to try to make sense and relate to your experience. When I heard Yoda's teachings in the Dagova system to Luke Skywalker, I knew, I was a teenager, but I knew they were true. I knew deep inside of me that is true. But how do I get there? I mean, my life, all my lifetime so far, it's about making sense of how do I know that is true and how do I get there?
Yeah.
And so working on myself in so many ways to, I don't know if it's about maturing spirituality or maturing personally or both, to realize that those teachings were true. The same for, like, when I listen to Gandalf and I listen to the all those the beings and the elf, I don't forgot his name, Legolas, and how they just know and they trust their feelings, and he touches the earth. Aragorn touches the earth and knows that the goblins or the whatever are like couple miles away. I know that's possible and I know that's true. I just don't know how to get there. But how can we know something that it is true? Where does it come from? I mean, how can we know that truth and not know how to be that?
Well, I think there's a couple of things which I want to offer back for all of that, that sounds almost contradictory, but they're not. One is, I think my experience has been that around death is that the psyche continues, the soul continues, and so I am very open to the idea that we live more than one life, And my experience so far has gone with that. So I think each one of us has a deeper part of the psyche, of the soul, that we touch, which we feel as intuition, which is a repository of knowing. And I think it's a part which is in touch with the most emergent level of the universe, the most the oneness, call it God or whatever name you gave it, this universal being. And we have that. It's a great source of intuition. So those things are we each have that, what Socrates called the daemon, the voice that speaks to you. The idea of the conscience was that, with knowledge, conscientes, with not, that you've got knowledge. It's with that's, I think, the source that we got now. But the thing I want to add to it is a both and again, Gloria. It's like, yes, and we also have this faculty to reason. And we need to also engage with that, because when I look back now, I've had, there's intuitions which I had when I was young that stayed the same, and there's intuitions which changed quite considerably. You'd spoken to me when I was 18 or 7, whenever I was, and I was involved with a kind of Hindu guru cult. I'd have told you my guru was the Lord of the universe, and it was completely obvious to me, and that I should surrender at his lotus feet and give him all my money. And now, not so much. And it feels like, no, I don't feel that at all now. And I'm very pleased that I got myself out of that, because I learned a lot that came out. So even those deep intuitions are up for grabs. So my overall sense is this: we are evolving. This is where I've ended up. You asked this. This is the really deep answer to the question you started with when you said, "Where's it led you?" Where it's led me to is this: the big insight 100 years ago in science, ironically, it was a Catholic priest who came up with it, is that the universe is not a thing, it's a process. That everything is evolving. The whole universe has evolved, and everything we know seems to point to this being correct.
Was that Teilhard of Chardin?
No, it was a guy. It was Georges Lemaitre.
Who?
Georges Lemaitre.
French.
And he came up with this idea became the Big Bang. This idea, the cosmic egg, that everything, and now we look at this, and it does seem that 14 billion years ago there was nothing much but hydrogen and a bit of helium, and here we are now, and it's become you and me having this conversation. Now that's a hell of a thing, isn't it? That's like, wow, from a gas to us having a conversation, not just with bodies, not just alive, but conscious. Not only has the universe become conscious of itself, so it can look at itself, it's also learned how to think about itself. So now, as you and me, and you can say we have a commonality here, that from a very young age, obviously, through us, the universe has gone, what the hell am I then? we are the universe trying to work out what it is. What else could we be? That's what we are. So in that process, it's not that we had something we lost. It's that we're evolving into something we've never had. In the past, very few people had these little moments where they would touch this deeper thing, and it became really important. It gave birth to religions and all that. But they were just like, the precursors of it. Now what's happening is that more and more of us are getting that. Still small, but more, significantly more. And there's an evolutionary current. So it's not about getting back something we lost, some big, it's like, oh, why have we, it's actually learning it for the first time. And we are the universe. We are the one. What else could we be? In this process of discovering itself on all of these new levels. And as we do that, we bring in new qualities. So a quality like unconditional love, it's in such short supply because it's really new.
Yes.
Anger has been around for a while. Fear, long while. You can go back into the animal world. There's plenty of anger. There's plenty of fear. There's not plenty of unconditional love. But now we're bringing through these justice, love, and the new spirituality that we needs to be evolutionary. Not to do with the fall into illusion, but rather the awakening from illusion through the evolutionary process.
So, would you think that what life is about for us reincarnating in this lifetime, in this era, is to pass from knowledge into wisdom? That
Yeah, I mean,
the awakening to wisdom, like knowledge, we all have the knowledge. I mean, I read your book and I have the knowledge, but the wisdom comes from the experience.
okay, yeah, I understand how you're using the words, and in the way that you're in the way you're talking of knowledge, and I think that's right. I think we're constantly looking for, that's the, as when I do philosophy, I'm always looking for that. It's like, don't think these are abstract ideas. None of them are. When I say we've been evolving for 14 billion years, that can be, I see, interesting, or that can be, oh my God. And then you get that you are that. And then you look at the moment and you see, hang on, it's doing it now. Every moment is becoming new, we're in a process in which there's new things have been emerging for 14 billion years, and it's happening now. And in fact, now what's happening is that nothing much is changing physically, although it is, but just very slowly. Nothing much is changing biologically, although it is, less slowly. But on the level of the psyche, where we're having this conversation, it's changing like mad. We're evolving as we speak, aren't we? You are saying things to me, I'm going, oh, I'm saying things to you. We're evolving as souls right now.
Yes.
And that's happening all the time. And then you see this huge, like a flowering of the universe into something transcendent. And we are that, I think.
You know that in different traditions, whether it's like the Wakantanka or the indigenous traditions or the Greeks or the Hindus, they have these beliefs about the yugas, about the ages, right? Like we go in cycles in the ages, and right now, from the astrological point of view, we're going from Pisces to the Aquarian age. We are in the middle of the transitions, which I believe intuitively that are the most powerful times to be part of, because they allow us the greatest opportunity for growth, because we have to change completely everything. And so has this happened before? Do you have a feeling about what's going on right now?
I don't. I think the idea of certainly there are chapters and you can see them as ages, and the astrological model which we've had in the West is so old, it's kind of ingrained at us, and I think I can get it. I don't dismiss it, but I also think that they've arisen at a certain time in human evolution, and they're all certainly the Eastern versions are very much to do with the idea that, well, no, the West too, there was a golden age, and then it fell into the silver age, and then it fell into the bright. So it's all about the fall. It's the same myth as in the Genesis. There was the Garden of Eden, and now we've all fallen from it. Or God had a dream, and then he got lost in it. Or we went through a period, understandably for me, of having a very negative view. So our spirituality was very negative. There's many reasons for that. One, up until very recently, life was an incredibly unpleasant experience a lot of the time. Most of your kids would die. You would probably die young. If you had toothache, there's nothing you could do about it. I mean, it's hard to get your head around the level. Everyone was poor, everyone, and so not surprisingly, people thought this was the devil's place. It wasn't a good place to be. You were in hell. And so let's get away from here and get to heaven. And if you go to the imagination, if you go to the world of images, the psyche, it can be heaven because you haven't got those constraints. And that was the vision. And also because I think people experienced, like I did when I was young, for a moment you're free. And then you come back and you feel like, oh, I've come back. Oh, I'm back. I just need to get free. What's in the way? Well, I'm in the way. And you look at yourself and you go, look, I'm imperfect. It must be my fault. And then it's your sins or your ego. Now, my feeling is, okay, it's all understandable, but I'm going to stick my neck out and say it's also completely wrong. That actually what's been happening the whole time is a slow progression towards the good. That this is evolving into something better. And it has. And we've now got the foundation where we can get that. And we don't have to reject the human experience. We can embrace it now. And through it, we can transcend into this greater love, and that we haven't fallen from a golden age. We're heading towards it.
Okay, so you would believe in a Darwinian type of evolution for our consciousness, our psyche. So it's like gradual, going from, you know, like that Darwin realized that it's an evolutionary process that starts from scratch and goes up high. But what about the idea that there had been higher evolved traditions before, like, you know, from those who created the pyramids, or Atlantean or Lemurians? What about that?
I don't think that's real.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are mythic fabrications. And when we go back into the actual history, they fall to bits. Very interesting cultures. I mean, amazing periods in the human story. But I think what we do is we want to find somebody that we can project on. So, you know, enlightened masters, we can project on them. They know they're perfect. Turns out they're pedophiles. You know, I mean, you know what I'm trying to say? You know, it's like nothing's what it seems. And the same with the ancient cultures, or the prehistory nomadic pastoralists. It was always beyond, not us. Whereas actually, I think what's been happening is we've been steadily evolving. It's not been linear, and things go up and down and in and out. But it's not Darwinian exactly. What Darwin saw was that he had this incredible vision that all of life in its complexity had started from one simple source and become more complex. And then there's whole sorts of arguments about the mechanism for that, and he made suggestions. But in a sense, what that idea of all life has arisen, and it's around me now. There's simple forms of life, then there's the plants, and, you know, there's the animals, and then there's us, and you can see that this is built. This is built from this. And then what happened 100 years ago with Georges Lemaitre and others was, it's like, no, the whole universe has evolved. Everything has evolved. Well, spiritual traditions have been talking about evolution for a long time, actually. And I think essentially it's a spiritual idea, which is that the soul evolves. So what it's doing is it's bringing all of this together and going, look, there's one story here. There's a story which can embrace science and spirituality. So that the mechanism of natural selection, Darwin's things, that probably is some part of what happens in the biological sphere. But it wasn't how the universe evolved, because there was no genes and no life and death. It's a whole different process. The creativity that created the stars is not the same as the creativity that created the animal world, or the world of life. So my suggestion is that's led to the evolution of the psyche, this thing which we're experiencing now, which doesn't exist in space and isn't made of matter, the place where we're having all these ideas and meaning and dreams and visions, and that has arisen from it, and it's a new level of reality, just like life was a new level of reality, and it now exists. And it's a domain, and it's arisen steadily, and it can survive without the body. And so that if let's say Darwin is right-ish around that life and death and natural selection is the mechanism for evolving species of animal, that the mechanism that's evolved from that is reincarnation. Because life and death is essential, this is what Darwin realized, for the evolution of species, because it means you throw up a new idea. If it survives, it does well. If not, next one. And so to develop a strong species, life and death is the best way to do that. But of course, it's terrible for evolving individuals, because the individual's just dead. And I think what's happened is that the immortality of the soul has evolved from that, so that now we've evolved onto a level where the individual doesn't die, because the evolution can continue, and that's what's happening to us. So the very mechanisms of evolution are themselves evolving, taking us as the universe, the one, evolves into something more.
Okay, so what brings me to the now is a couple of ideas about who we are in relation to the cosmic energy, because we are just part of a cosmic dance, it seems. And we believe as humans, maybe it's just an ego-centered idea, that we are like, whoa, we are the highest in the the chain. We're so wise, we're so intelligent comparing to other species and life itself, even the planet. And, I have had this feeling that we are just puppets of the cosmic energy, that we believe we have free will just because our ego wants to believe that we can do whatever we want. But we are actually responding to cosmic energies that we are not aware of consciously, that takes us through the ages, that takes us through the times where we have the possibilities. I do feel right now that we are immersed in a very intense age of transformation, that we are like being reborn, like the phoenix, from the ashes. We have that opportunity, being reborn from ashes, like totally changing and letting go, shedding all the conditioning that had made us co-create this reality that is very dysfunctional in many ways, because that's what we see in life around the planet. We see a lot of good things happening, but overall, what you mentioned before, like the idea of massive idea of unconditional love, it's sort of new, comparing to the idea of anger, which has been there for a long time. And so I have a feeling that this idea that we have a free will, that we can do anything that we want, is more connected to ignorance of who we truly are. The more awakened we are, the more we know that we have to be in tune with that cosmic oneness or cosmic energy, that it's not that we can do whatever we want. We have to respond to those cosmic laws or to that cosmic energy to bring that awareness into the oneness in our consciousness. So what's your thought about, free will and about this cosmic dance?
These are great questions. So yeah, I'm probably going to need to say a few things, which are quite big things, to answer that. Let's start with what you call the cosmic energy. I mentioned the word God earlier on. We can use whatever words, but a big shift for me in my understanding, which I'm really drawn to and exploring, is the idea with this evolutionary story that it doesn't start with God. It's the God is not the source; it's the destination. And there's lots of reasons for that. I mean, one of the classic reasons is, if you put a great being of love at the beginning, it's very hard to understand why that great being of love has created so much suffering, or all the evils in the world, blah, 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 all those things. And also, if you accept the evolutionary story, which does seem pretty strong to me now, then 250,000 years, a million years of dinosaurs. Like, why? Why would you do that? This God's crazy. However, what seems to me is that what I notice about the whole process that I'm in life is that it goes from the evolutionary process goes from the simple to the more complex. So I didn't start like this. My body started like a fertilized egg, and it wasn't there having thoughts. It was just an egg. And then the next thing you know, it turned into this, and then this, and then it's here having this conversation with you. And my feeling for the universe is something similar is happening, that the universe is flowering into the most emergent thing you can imagine, the greatest thing you can imagine, which is the universe conscious of itself. So that rather than it starting with that, that's what it's becoming, and that we are part of that becoming. So that there is a greater will than ours, which is emerging. Now, I do think we have free will. I think it's something we have to work at, because most of what we do is just conditioned by our past. So we have to work with that power of being able to be conscious enough to make choices. But I do think the creativity of the universe arises in us consciously. It's like, if I pick up that, it's going to fall. It has no choice. The plants have got a little bit of choice. They can move towards the sun, but I can choose. I have this thing, this imagination, so I can imagine two possibilities and choose one of them. And I can choose one that I know is good or not. I can go, it's good for Tim. Or I could go, I know it's good for Tim, but this is good in a greater way. So I'm going to do what's not good for Tim. I can even do that. So I have this choice. And then through that process of evolving, I'm tuning into something greater than me, which is emerging. And so my feeling is when we wake up to oneness, when our individual souls commune with the oneness of everything, we are creating between us something greater than ourselves, which one of the traditional words would be God, or a benign spirit, a benign something, the universe conscious of itself. And that's what's arising as we do this. And that then I agree with you completely. At that point, then it's like, so if I want to truly live a good life, I need to try and harmonize my choices with this greater goodness and serve it in every way that I can. And then that becomes my choice to do that as best as I can.
So what would happen in this process of the universe becoming conscious of itself? Once the universe has fully become conscious, what then? It's like the Big Bang and the Big Crunch. Are we, once it's become fully conscious and we are all conscious, do we sort of become like a Shambhala kind of thing, or do we, I mean, this is only speculative because probably we don't know, but we can talk about it intuitively. I mean, what happens next? Is there going to be like another cycle of the Big Bang or the Big Crunch, or the nothing and the everything, and the Tao, the Wu Chi and the Tai Chi? It's sort of like a thing. What's your hunch on that?
Well, I think my hunch is I don't know, and actually I feel that is the right answer, because what I feel with it's a bit like, when you sit with a dog, or and they're looking at you like, and you're having a conversation, and they haven't got a clue what you're talking about, but they're kind of intrigued, and they want. And I feel like that with God, or maybe like I feel like God is made of us. It's the communion of it's made of the communion of souls. So in Christian tradition, there's a communion of souls around God, and I'm suggesting it's not around God, it is God. And I feel a bit like, look, my body is a communion of cells, but this cell in my finger has got no idea what it's like to be Tim. And I feel like that with God. It's so beyond me. But what I do know is what it's like to commune in God, and that is this blissful oneness.
Uh-huh.
This enormous love. So that's as far as I can go, because beyond that there's something which is greater, just greater than me, and so where that leads, I have no idea.
So this brings me to like how we were, how we were taught to be separated from God. I mean, God is that, and we're here. We're nothing to do with God. And I think that's very, the monotheistic religions, I'm not sure about the pagan religions, but like this idea that everybody thinks of Jesus as God. I mean, when you talk about somebody and you talk about Jesus, with most believers, they think that is God. He's the Son of God. He's the Son of God. We're not.
Yeah.
This feeling that there's separateness. I mean, and that's why probably they had to put Jesus Christ in a pedestal, and to make it very distinct from a normal human being, which he probably wasn't. He was also enlightened, awakened. He became very pure. Whatever happened in his history that we can feel and think about it intuitively, or whatever, based on the things that there are. But this idea that God is unreachable directly from us, we have to go through some being, or because this sense of believing that Jesus is the Son of God and we're not, is so, for me, it's so unreal. I mean, so castrating in a sense of who what we are in this cosmic dance.
Absolutely right.
And so what is your vision, or what would you tell when you go to Ireland and you're in group with Catholics? And what do you tell them about this, about Jesus, or about
There's so much that you bring up. Um, my feeling with this, the vision that I'm interested in, I think everything is evolving. Everything, especially our understanding. So the idea of God has evolved. So you've got the idea that of a deity outside creating it and kind of then stepping in now and again to reward or punish and all of that sort of thing. And we've grown up from that. But the thing with human beings is we said this right at the beginning, they can only think with the ideas they have. That's all they can do. Any of us. So if you have the awakening in China, you're going to come up with those Chinese ideas. If you have it in India, it'll be the Indian ideas. Except for now, we have all of them. We have a new eclectic cosmopolitan place. So we can have this conversation, which none of our ancestors could possibly have had. I mean, obviously, because we're in different countries, but that's a great symbol for the different cultures all being able to meet. So that's huge. And so my feeling is, look, God, you talk about the pagan world. The first thing that human beings do is they try and work out how the universe is working. And they've got, what ideas do they have to think with? They have the animals to think with. So they think, and they have their human relationships. So the deities are like kings or animals or parents, or that's what they have to think with. So you have eventually in our tradition in the West, we have a father. And is he a kind father? Yes, but he's also a judgmental father. He's a father. Don't cross him, and all of that. And he lays down the rules, and that's, so we're thinking with what we've got. But as we've evolved further, we can now think in new ways. So we can now have a different idea. And the idea that I'm putting across with the idea of God, although I am troubled sometimes by the word because it's so misleading, is that this is the body of God. This is it. And God is not separate from this. God, the universe is flowering into God. We are it. Everything is it. But it's it in a process, like the process of Tim, but on a cosmic level. And we're coming into that. Now, what interests me when I talk with Christians is, and this is a whole big another subject, which is my theories on Christianity, but I'm very interested by the Gnostic Christians. And for the Gnostic Christians, the whole thing is a myth. The whole story is a myth about awakening. So if you can approach it in that way, the whole point is, the whole point, as Paul says, it's about discovering the Christ in you. It's all about discovering the Christ in you. And what is the Christ in you? It's the Atman in you, or the Buddha nature in you, or the Nous in you. It's the common oneness within you. And the whole purpose of the whole myth is to lead you to that. And once you see that, then you don't get bogged down in all of the other stuff that.
So it's been this story that we've been told is a myth. So did Jesus really existed, or is
No
the myth? No.
I having gone into it and very, very, very deeply for a very long time. No, I would say there's no evidence that there was a person called Jesus. What there is evidence for is that there's a commonality of myths throughout the whole of the ancient world around figures like Mithras and Adonis and Serapis and Osiris, and that they're all dying and resurrecting deities or sons of God. And that what we have in the Jewish culture is Joshua, which becomes in Greek Jesus, who is another version. And the original Christians absolutely knew that. They knew that. I think the Gnostic Christians, who were later persecuted by the Roman Roman Church, that literally went underground, but pretty much out of existence. Before that happened, before the Roman Empire took up the religion, the vast majority of people were Gnostic Christians, and they absolutely knew that. And if you go back to their texts, they're very clear about it. It's a cosmic myth. It's an allegorical myth, which is about you waking up to what they call the gnosis, the knowledge, the mystical knowing, the wisdom, I think would be the word you would use now. So it's that's what they're looking for. And you get that by discovering the Christ in you. And figures like Mary Magdalene and Jesus, these are all archetypes. Mary Magdalene, the two Marys, these are Sophia. For the Gnostics, they have a goddess as well as, so they have a mother as well as a father, and they have a daughter as well as a son. So the daughter and the mother are Sophia, whose name means wisdom. So there's a higher wisdom and lower wisdom. She has other names too, and they are basically Jewish versions of Demeter and Persephone, and they're the soul that falls into the underground. And so the two Marys, the Virgin Mary and the fallen and redeemed Mary, are the two aspects of the goddess. So that's the mother-father dynamic, which accompanies the father-son dynamic. And suddenly you're in a completely different world with it, because you just realize, oh, this is very old and very profound mythology. It's more like the Star Wars of its day. It is, and it's imagine Star Wars where in 1,000 years' time or 2,000 years' time, people are going, what, there was no Yoda? What are you saying? And it's like, no, there was no Yoda. That's the point. Oh, so it's all rubbish then? No, it's still as good as it was. Yeah. It's just not. It just didn't happen. It was a film, and it's like that.
Well, what matters is not that Yoda existed or not, but that the teachings are the teachings are the wisdom that was shared is pointing us to where we need to focus. But this is very profound and amazing that obviously we need a couple hours more for it, but maybe we'll do it when we are able to just focus on one topic, because I mean, this is very, very profound. And I was asking the editorials for books, why is it that there are so many writers that write about questioning, Christianity and its origins and so many things, and like you, like Kathleen McGowan, maybe so many others that want to bring the new things, and they only allow them to write through fiction, through novels, not directly. And I said, this is not the time for that anymore. I mean, it has to be part, as much as the myths were part, these possibilities of the Gospels of Philip, where he says that Jesus kissed often Mary Magdalene and all those things that they mention, they have to be open there. But you see, what I feel is that once they are allowed to be part of the stories that we have around, the power of the church is going to fall. And they don't want to let go of that power because, I mean, it's been useful for them. But the church in that way has to just become a vehicle and not be as powerful as it has been historically, because it's been very damaging for people to...
Sure, I think so too. And, it's a very dark history. Obviously, there's been many, many good people in it, and there's many, many good people in it now, but there's no doubt about it. It has had a very, very dark history.
Very dark.
And it is also amazing to me, isn't it, that you'd think that anyone who was interested in Christianity would jump on the Gnostic Gospels and go, what are these then? But half of them don't even know they exist. And they're a funny mixed bag, because early Christianity was not what you think it was at all. There were hundreds of different groups, all practicing different things. Some of them were into free love. Some of them were very aesthetic. Some of them, but this so-called Gnostic current was a bit like the New Age now. It's like, what is it? Well, there's hundreds of things. Some of it's complete rubbish. Some of it's brilliant. And that was the same then. Why? Because, like you said, it was a transition into the age of Pisces, and it was all of these changes were happening. And this amazing Gnostic current was really the flowering of something that had been developing in the pagan world for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, and was widespread. Which is why, if you go to the texts of the time, what's fascinating is that the earliest texts from the pagans, when they're criticizing Christianity, they're criticizing it because they're just going, well, you're just repeating our stories. There's nothing new in this. And the reply develops at a certain point in Gaul, France, and Rome, and places like that. You see in the 2nd century, you first start hearing people going, oh no, but our story's different because this guy actually came. And that's when you have this new idea. Oh, this is history, not mythology. And that idea will take off, and we'll have it for 2,000 years.
Now, this is the point that maybe finally we are arriving to the original topic that I proposed. Like, okay, so finally, we create these belief systems based on whatever history has been before, how we have developed those ideas, whether based on some reality or not. But they have shaped our world totally. I mean, the way we have seen Christianity influence the belief systems and the reality that I've created in regards to female energy, like, you know, femininity, or the divine feminine energy, or the divine masculine.
Yeah.
The patriarchal systems that we've lived in, where women have been completely isolated and pushed down and everything. They all respond to, I don't know if it's part of the cosmic dance that is saying, now you're going to experience the patriarchal macho energy in this world and see what it can bring. And so we have to completely bring down all the feminine energy. And what I see in history happening now, like it's taken a while for women to, which, you know, represents sort of the feminine energy in the cosmic dance, but coming to their own power. And what we are seeing now is that the energy are sort of coming to an equilibrium. It will take a while for it to be completely established and regarded both as the same power. But our belief system, that's my question, have been based on something that is not the essential truth. It's sort of part of a reality, part of a level of truth, but, you know, it's not based on the essence of the power of the energies in essence. So our belief systems have co-created this world, and this world is showing us back, reflecting us back, how dysfunctional most of what we have created in this world has been. And so now there are many questions about this, but one of the questions would be, how can we align with a purer truth to live life in a way that...
I see it just all as evolving, you know. So you know, I don't think there's any great cosmic plan going on here. I think people, human beings, are doing their best in difficult circumstances, and if you're living in a world where you've developed nations or tribes who will, the easiest way to survive is to steal from each other, then you're going to need people who can fight. And men are better at fighting, so that will become the dominant thing in any society for a while. As that's diminished, now that's changing, because we don't need that anymore. And so it's like, okay. So I see these things as kind of much more organic, and we're looking for the deepest truth. You know, they thought very things we don't think, you know, like Plato was a very smart guy, but he thought the brain was a cooling system for the blood. Turns out it's not. You know, it's like, but that was you know, he was a groundbreaker. Newton had ideas which, since Einstein, we know are not right, but wow, what a great guy, and so on and so on and so on. So I see it all as and so our job is to push and to find the deeper truth for the first time. Not that someone once knew it and we lost it, but nobody's ever known it. We have to find it. We have to find how to think about it. We are the universe finding it. We are the universe going, what am I? And why do I exist? And by the way in which we approach that, and then if, like I said, we tune into the more transcendent aspects, then we can do that in the most transcendent way. That's so. It becomes it's an evolutionary process. You asked me something else as well, which was fascinating in there, and I've forgotten what it is, damn it, because there was something else which really struck me in what you said, but I think it's gone. So we'll have to do with that. Yeah, that we're moving, that we're actually kind of, we're moving towards it, and we are it. We are it. And the things which have happened in the past, I know what it was. Yeah, it was to do with the Gnostics. I mean, you enjoy the Gnostics, so I'm going to come back to the Gnostics. So when I was studying the Gnostics and mythology, this is about 25 years ago, what I saw was that there was a commonality, quite common in mythology, about the male and the female. And that was the male was being. It was the source. It was the emptiness, the mystery, and the feminine was all the forms, all the colors. So who is the goddess? Everything, all of this, the whole universe. You know, in for the Egyptians, it was Nuit, the night sky, and she contained within her everything. So she's every taste, every flavor, every color, every sensation. That's the Psyche. That's the goddess. And then what do you see through the holes in the little where the light comes through in the night sky? That's God. That's the thing which is beyond. That's the transcendent. That's the thing that has no form. So there's the form, and in my view, that would be the being, and then the becoming, the changing. And what we've seen is that the spiritual. When I criticize spirituality in the past, and I say we need to move on, it's because it's been very much towards the transcendent. Go back to the thing which is get out of the cave, get back to the light. Whereas what we've done actually now is we've actually engaged with the forms, and science was the big thing that's done that. It's gone, hang on, let's stop believing just what's written in books. Let's actually look at Mother Nature and let her teach us. And then from that, we've now got the internet. It's like everything, everything has changed, and life is so much better for us, and there's much less suffering, and we're richer, and life is more opulent, and we can stop and think a lot more. And wow. And alongside that has come very quickly, for the first time possibly ever, certainly for thousands of years, a reevaluation of the role of women. And suddenly the idea of embodiment of the sensual world not being the enemy, but being something to celebrate, has started to emerge and come in. And that feels really all part of this movement, this one movement that's happening, which is, I think, as you say, a rebalancing from a view of life which is about getting away to one which is about entering in.
It's amazing because, the energy, if we can tap into the energy, just if we can learn to tap into the energy that's around us, we can really know how to flow or navigate through this time and open up and connect to the deeper truths. There's as you said, everybody is going through their own individual process, and maybe those who have the experiences as you have had have come to help be a light, a lighthouse for other people who are starting their awakening process, because it's like, the waves that, they come and go, and everybody's running in the wave in a different pace or a different kind of wave, but there's always the lighthouse that can help whoever's anywhere to sort of know which direction to go. And I think these are blessings that people receive in life, to be able to become a lighthouse. And I think you're one of those, definitely. And that's a blessing, and it's great to have you, because you're breaking through your philosophy and your beliefs and the way you have used your mental process with the information that you've got, to break all the things that have gotten us stuck into certain belief systems, like even spirituality, that we need to break everything apart if we are going to become like the phoenix and become new. I think this world is asking desperately for something new.
Yes.
Because
yes.
what we've been given, we are up to here of all the corruption, of all the evilness, the darkness. We need not only the light, but to understand that we are becoming uni individuals, and that we need to start living from knowing that we affect each other. And when you mentioned the animals, I must say, I've been surrounded by my dogs, and just recently a cat that adopted me. And I have seen how even the animals are evolving.
Yes, without doubt.
Their level of understanding of our connection is much higher from when I had dogs. I know it has to do a lot with how much I've evolved, but I can see the way they behave and how they understand what I say more now than before. So I think everything is evolving and awakening
Everything.
one way or the other.
I'd say if there's one key idea in terms of an idea which has informed my understanding of everything and spirituality and what awakening is that what if everything is evolving? What if this process we're in is a process in which ever greater potentials are being realized based on what's gone before? That's what it is. It's the realization of potentiality in ever more emergent ways. And it started with the very simplest of things, and it's heading always towards the more emergent. And we are that. So are the cats and everything is that. And that's how we've made this incredible journey. And then the interesting thing is you look at culture, and I mean, I resonate with you. I think there's a whole lot of people who are like, no, we've got to move on now. But the truth is, things have never been better. So what's happened is that our expectations have gone right up. Hurrah! It's like, yeah, actually, the world there's more connected, less suffering, kinder, more awake. It's less poverty. On every count you can measure, it's like through the roof, better. And through that, we're going, oh, right, well, let's make it really better. Let's actually, let's really, let's not settle for this. Let's go for that. And that, I think, is what this transition, of an age is all about. And it's how we facilitate that. And the thing which motivates me as much as, as I can to try and contribute what I can while I'm here is it feels like the key to making that happen is going to be a 21st century spirituality. That's going to be the key. It's like Pierre de Chardin said, when we discover the power of love, it will be like we've discovered this power of fire again. It's such a powerful thing. So how can we do that without it sounding like woo-woo? Well, we need it to be experiential. We need people to get it, but we also need it to be intellectually smart. We need to speak to the head and the heart. And if we're going to do that, it needs to be what I call Tran scientific. It needs to take all of the advances of science and then add this on the top. Not to be at war with it, because the scientific thing has been so good, but it's missed out this. And we need to come back to it and go, wow, brilliant. God, how did you understand all of that? That's wonderful. This fits with it, actually. And if we can see it as one thing, then I think there'll be as big a shift. I don't know if it'll be in my lifetime, but soon. There will be as big a shift as there was when the scientific revolution happened. And I think, if you could take someone from 400 years ago and show them us on the internet talking in completely different time zones, it would be unbelievable. But human beings did that. And we can do the next thing too. We just need the ideas with which to think.
Yes, definitely. I mean, you've said something. I hope we come back on those in our next lifetime to see the effects of what we have planted. Or
shall we book in a podcast now that for the next lifetime, so we can come back and go, well, what do you think? Did it work out?
Yeah, we have to do that. We have to. We have another interview before next lifetime. But to tell you the truth, I do believe that we are the seeds of the new consciousness, and we have to do as much as we can to bring and anchor the new ways of thinking. That the transitions take centuries to happen, but we are the ones that are putting the seeds, and so I hope that this transition, I believe, is just amazing. And I'm very thankful for the quarantine, because it's giving me the most stimulus for connecting with people like you, or for I've been working more in quarantine than I was before, because I just had to follow the energy. I had to just follow wherever it was taking me, no matter what that meant, but I had to do it. And so I believe that even if the virus was fabricated in a laboratory, there are many good things of why that happened, in spite of all the things that are still happening.
There's always good, isn't there? There's always good to be found. Even in the most terrible thing, there is always some good to be found. And
yes.
So maybe I can just mention, because it may be interesting to you and it may be interested to people who are listening to this. So one of the ways that I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to develop the unividualism as a philosophy, which can bring science and spirituality together. That's the kind of intellectual side. Then these practices, which are to do with connection, and we're doing those online as well as in person now. And then also community. So last year I thought, okay, I've got to stop being so on my own. So I started, it's a very small group of lovely people, explorers, called the International Community of Unividuals, which of course shortens to the ICU, which I quite like. And so, because that's what it's about seeing each other. So I now have tried to start gathering people together and going, if you get this, if you realize that we're evolving onto this next level, let's support each other. Let's thinking clearer, being more open-hearted, and bringing and nurturing the connection.
Please tell us about it. How do you do it? I mean, if it's international and using the technology that we have now, how are you coming about the
Individuals.
Exactly.
Unividuals, yes.
That? And
we meet up once a week on a Sunday at 7 o'clock the UK time. So it's earlier in America. We have people joining us literally. I mean, it's a very small little group because it's people who are really sort of drawn to this. But what I love about it is the diversity. So we have men and women and young and old, and literally all over the world. So it will not be uncommon to have someone in South America, someone in, few people in North America, Europe, the UK, Australia, maybe Japan. I have a Japanese group as well. And it's in English. We do it in English. And thank you, by the way, for doing this in English. I appreciate that. Every week we do something different. So some weeks will be ideas, what I call wisdom meetups, where I'll just share ideas and we'll discuss them and go off into rooms and discuss them together. And then we'll do awakening meetups where I'll lead meditations and connection practices so that we can connect really deeply and feel the effect that has on our consciousness, and community meetups, all sorts of things.
But how do you do it? I mean, do you do it like through Zoom or some sort?
Yes, through Zoom.
Okay. So where can people have access to this information?
So the place to go for information about me generally is my website. So if you look for Tim Freke, and you spell it, it's a crazy name, and if you spell it right, Freke, then I know.
That's how it sounds. That's how it sounds, your last name, Freke.
It's pronounced Freak. Yeah. What can you do? I made it through school with a name like Freak. What can you do? Yeah, I know, crazy. It is actually pronounced Freak, and it's written Freke. But if you Google me, Tim Freke, you'll find me. There's not many of us. And then on my website, there's a whole load of free videos. There's all my books. There's all of that. But there's also a link for the ICU, the community, online community. And if you go there, you can see how to join. You can join, just try it out for a month, completely free. Just come along, see what you think. We have a community Facebook page, and we join and support each other. And the conversation goes deep because as you meet up every week by week, so the questions can really start going deeper.
Oh, this is amazing that I get you so much when you said, okay, it's not just anymore just about me, but about the community. And I think that what you've done and what you're doing is just very amazing and right on for what it's needed now. So I'm gonna look into it, join, and I'm very excited about it. And I just want to thank you so much and show you my respect, my admiration, and my gratitude for having access to having agreed to have this conversation, and to bring whoever touches different places differently. I am so grateful, Tim, for this conversation. I know there's so much that is left behind but there'll be more times, and I'm going to look into that and for sure continue with this amazing journey next to you, because I do connect completely with all that you've shared today. And I feel exactly a lot, and I know there's a lot more to understand, to learn, to awaken to. So this is so amazing. I'm so grateful that we're sharing this lifetime.
Well,
Really.
it's been a real joy. I love connecting with you, and thank you for the invite. And aren't we so precious? It's such a precious opportunity that we can connect like this.
Yes,
And
definitely.
I'm immensely grateful. And then through our conversation, hopefully we can connect with a whole load of other people who I hope have enjoyed this as well. And that's a wonderful thing.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And my regards to Debbie,
Thank you.
and to new connections coming
Yeah,
in the future. I
great.
appreciate you so much, Tim, and have a great day. Thank you for your time. And I hope everybody who listens to this really connects to it and joins you as well in your project.
Wonderful. All right, lots of love. Big love.
Thank you. The same. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye.